Time is running out. The EU is almost at the 11th hour for trade negotiations with the United States to avoid an all-out tit-for-tat trade war. According to the Financial Times and Reuters, diplomats are closing in on a trade deal. And as Chancellor Friedrich Merz pointed out earlier in the week, a deal with the U.S. will not be balanced. We're now talking about 15% tariffs on all EU imports to the U.S., with some exclusions, such as aircraft, spirits, and medical devices. So is this good enough to make a deal? Joining me now to discuss is Polish Deputy Minister of Development and Technology, Michał Baranowski. Good evening, Mr. Minister, and thank you for joining us on World News tonight. So, do you think...
Wonderful to be back with you.
Yeah, great to have you. Nice to see you. So do you think 15% tariffs on European goods, do you think that's a good enough deal that the EU should take to avoid escalation?
It's an excellent question, but I would answer this only when I see this as a deal, and we will answer it together. So an excellent question that I will certainly avoid answering on air. We hope for a deal. We hope for a balanced deal. There are some signs that a deal might be coming. You point to press reports. The negotiations have been very long and difficult, I must add. And it's a bit of a roller coaster, even if we look at the last week or so. So fingers crossed, and EU is staying united in its approach to the US.
Right. Okay. Well, if we are unwilling to discuss perhaps the potential 15%, I mean, I understand that we need to figure out what other countries are paying as well to make sure that Europe makes a good deal rather than just any deal. But if we look at Japan, the United States and Japan made a similar deal. Mm-hmm. And if we look at, say, auto exports, for example, they're very, very close. European Union exports around $47.3 billion in autos to the United States. Japan exports about $55 billion, and Japan took the 15%. Let's just assume that we take the 15%, and that is going to be the deal. Do you think that this is going to negatively hit the European car producers that export autos to the United States?
Look, let me just reiterate, the reasons why I'm not going to discuss the details of it is because we are negotiating. It would be pretty forward for one of the deputy ministers in one of the member states to say that a potential deal that may or may not be on the table is good enough for us. We are looking for a balanced one. Now, any tariffs above zero are not good for, are worse than the alternative for European producers and for American consumers. Let's remember that those tariffs are being paid by American consumers. For those in America that might be watching me, that's really where the buck stops. Now, right now we have been in a moment of escalation when it comes to cars, when it comes to steel and aluminum, and the deadline of August 1st is coming fast. And this is why also Europe made it very clear that we have a retaliatory package that was agreed this morning, and that if US is going to increase tariffs, we'll do so as well. And this is all in order to reach a negotiated solution on both sides. Maybe I'll stop here.
Okay, so the retaliatory tariffs today, and I'll remind our viewers, are worth 93 billion euro in total, agreed to today by the European Parliament, or the European Commission. Now, there's also the so-called bazooka option, which is the anti-coercion instrument, which could block U.S. firms from public tenders, revoke IP protection, and restrict imports and exports. Now, if we get to that area, would you agree that we're in the worst phase of a U.S.-EU trade war, and essentially that would shut down all trade between the two countries? I mean, the EU and, of course,
the United States. Right. It's not exactly how it works. What would shut down large portion of the trade is if the United States decided to raise tariffs at 30% or above, and we as EU would have to retaliate. One of the options that is just being discussed, but it's not, again, most of these things are discussed in a very private settings, often without phones even, because they are so sensitive, is the anti-coercion instrument. It's not something that has been officially put on the table. The discussions are ongoing. It's not something that would be used immediately. It's a process that even when the Commission triggers it, takes a number of months. But then it's described as trade bazooka because it does not only pertain to goods, but also to services. And let's just put the bigger picture for the viewers. We are talking, these are not technical conversations we are having. This is the most vital economic relationship that both Europe and the United States has. And it's something that underpins our strong transatlantic alliance. So we are now talking about trade, but in fact, it's something that has immediate impact on our political relationship across the Atlantic. And that's why it's so important.
It certainly does. It certainly does. And Europe lately has been really jittery about the United States commitment to NATO, the commitment to Ukraine, but we were starting to witness sort of a turn of the corner. We're seeing the reestablishment of better relations between the Trump administration and Ukraine. We also see the United States reaffirm NATO in Article 5 a few times in recent months. So with that whole situation shored up, this seems to be the one last holdout. Are you confident that a deal will be made here by August 1st? Excuse me.
I'm pretty confident at this point. But even though that today is, I believe, July 24th, this is still a long way to go. I'm having conversations twice a day with our ambassador in Brussels, who is in constant touch also with the Commission. The member states are meeting lately once a day because it's such a roller coaster, because it's such a dynamic development. As you said, we have gotten a number of areas, especially on security and defense and at the NATO summit in The Hague, where we were able to reach transatlantic agreement. So, in that spirit, I'm both hopeful, and this is very much the line that Polish government is taking, that we reach not only we stay united in Europe and we reach a good transatlantic deal. And when we have this deal on the table, we'll be able to really say whether this is something good enough or not good enough from our national perspectives and from our EU perspectives. And if we are not happy with the deal, then we'll have to think about alternatives. But we are not there yet. And I hope that when we meet next week, we'll be much closer, if not already at a level where an agreement has been achieved.
Okay, well, we'll be keeping our fingers crossed, and thank you so much for joining us tonight, Polish Deputy Minister of Development and Technology, Michał Baranowski. Thank you. And that concludes this edition of World News Tonight. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time. Good night.